Alright, that's everybody. There. Good morning. Working on some thumbnails. I thought we would do is start with what I like to call the stupid version. I wanted to do some actual paintings, key arts for my comic project. Now that I've done a bunch of those little acrylic paintings, the other ones I think are basically done. So, been thinking about it, since coming close to that one. I've got like this little worksheet I put together that has all of my kind of story beats on it, and all the important ones, and trying to decide which one maybe to start with. And I think one that I kind of feel like I have clarity on, you can't really tell in this one, is this one right here. So, but the idea is you want, with the stupid version, principle is basically you start with kind of just figuring out what all the elements you want to include are, and you put them all down. So basically, I call it the stupid version, or maybe it's the kids version to be better. I don't know. But basically, the idea is you, similar to what you would see with like a little kid's drawing, similar to what you would see with that, is, a little kid, when a little kid does a drawing, they'll put like the ground on there, and then they'll have like, the house with the sun and the door. And even if their house doesn't look anything like this, they'll kind of draw this kind of almost symbolic version of reality in order to kind of like express the things that they like to include in their art. And that's what I call the stupid version. So a lot of times when students are trying to put together an image, they're not entirely sure kind of where to begin, because there's so many things that you could include, you might do, that it can sometimes be somewhat crippling. And so what I like to do is, again, start with what I call that stupid version. The idea here is you just kind of put down all the things you want to include. So in my case, I'm thinking about kind of the image from the third act, and I might do it horizontally, or I might do it vertically. Some of these other ones I was playing around, like here's just like a general scene where he's like running away from this creature, or kind of exploring some of the regions within the planet that and I might do some of this stuff too, but I was thinking maybe doing the kind of the end, or the climax of the first act. So after he gets sent out by his colony to go search for the beacon, this is the moment when he kind of finds that beacon, and the trouble that brings him. So I've been thinking about the beacon. I was like, well, what if we made it kind of like a buoy? So I've looked up some images of buoys. Say a space buoy, maybe. Let's see, I should bring that up here. Buoy. The idea being like it's got like a kind of a simpler bottom and a more complicated top, and some techie stuff on it. So I looked up some buoys, and some of them basically they kind of have like this top part here, and then the bottom part there. They come in a wide variety of different types of things. Then here's, this one would be, something along that line. Maybe there's kind of access hatches here, because that's kind of important to this little part of the story. beat here. And so, that would be kind of important. And then let's see if I go to my Pinterest pages. Let's see. Wanted world. There's my recent stuff. And the idea is, it's when he's been sent out to find it, and it's hard to find because it's kind of where it's at and the nature of the world that they're inhabiting. And so he's out there looking for it. But let's see, where's my in here? Yeah, be a good spot for it. But the idea was it would be kind of in the middle of some kind of nest, so that would be trouble. So maybe there's some kind of hollow here where he's kind of coming into it, where it's landed. I was thinking, if I was looking at some Mars, I think it's Pathfinder, where basically it landed with a bunch of it was kind of like surrounded by a bunch of balloons, basically, something like that, and they landed it that way rather than dropping with a parachute. They landed it inside of kind of these balloons, and it bounced on the surface till it came to a pause. And so I was thinking about that. So what would that look like? So this has been sitting here for about 80 years or so. So they'd be deflated, and there'd be kind of a mess of them lying around this buoy. So I'm just trying to think of kind of what this scene might actually look like. There's the thing, maybe one of them is still inflated for some reason, it's just kind of sticking there partially inflated. So it's just trying to kind of figure out how this see, again, there's some kind of hollow, which is kind of what I sketched in the original drawing there, where it's kind of built into, it's collapsed into this hollow, and so it's kind of in the back of that. And then all around it is, it's clearly some kind of nest or something. Maybe there's just like a bunch of eggs or different piles of eggs or things, eggs stuck to the ceiling and the walls. So it's like it's not a two-dimensional kind of scene. So, and then he would be coming up on it, or this could be a reverse where he's standing over here, over by it, and this is when the parents come home. Have it coming in all around this little hollow here where this buoy has landed, and they've made kind of their nest. There's there's plants and things kind of pulling in. So this is what I'm calling like the stupid version. And it is, I'm not, the reason, well, partially why I call it that is I don't want to be invested in it too much. And the idea of that is that you don't want to kind of set up an arrangement in your composition where you're not willing to pull back as much. And so by first off, by labeling it the stupid version, it helps me kind of not be as invested in the picture yet. So I can just kind of move things around or play with things until I get them exactly where I intend. So that's why I call it partially call it the stupid version. Is it the idea here is it's for me to really consider all the options there. So it won't be, I get just kind of I might even go with a larger panel. We'll see how the thumbnails actually end up. Because what I'm eventually going to do is I'm going to take this content from the stupid version. I've got a particular technique for making thumbnails that help me design them more easily. But yeah, so that's kind of the idea. Is like he's finding the buoy, but maybe again there's a nest of eggs of some kind in here, waiting for mommy and daddy to come home. And he's gonna, part of the story is like he stumbles into trouble fairly often. I appreciate that. Just I'm working on some thumbnails, so I thought I would do that first. We've got ourselves a bot over on Kick for some reason. Let's dispose of our bot over here. How about we go with bam, 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 bam. Delete. Yeah, so it's coming on for a little bit. I've got some stuff I have to do today. Exciting, fun stuff. So, so I've set up a thumbnail because I've been doing these other paintings, right, recently. So this one, I think, is effectively, this one's effectively done. So I was doing these acrylic paintings as a test project, and that one's mostly done. I might touch it up. I wanted to set it aside for a few days. Spent a little bit of time cleaning it up. But I wanted to lean back into my own project. So I'm just kind of like figuring out some of the elements that I want to do in this picture. So, so this comic story I've been working on, which you can kind of see over here. Yeah, this is my story beats that I've been working on for a bit. Oh, there's a shot of this buoy thing right here. The idea here is I want to be able to think through this more easily. So, so I've got a whole bunch of these. I think it might be worthwhile just kind of focus on these beats as my key art pieces. Like this shot right here. It's pretty clear on that particular aspect. The idea is he finds this thing, and there's some strange things that he finds on the surface of it, and that really impacts the nature of his story and what he's looking for. I really want to kind of zero in on that. So like maybe we've got some elements that kind of come down. And again, the idea is this thing has been sitting here for a while, so it's not like it shouldn't look very new, or it'll have like plants and things built into it. But make it pretty sizable, maybe, too, be a good idea. So I got smaller here about the size of him, but maybe if we why is this beacon activated all of a sudden? So that's what I'm trying to think through here is how I want this to so I've got, the guy there, I've got this beacon. I think the beacon's gonna look a lot like a buoy. Where did my buoy pictures go? Not there. I'm not getting those too, but there we go. A little light on top or something that maybe is activated. So, hello. Good morning. Yeah, so trying to figure out this stupid version. Yeah, so it's coming in like, stupid version is basically me trying to kind of come up with ideas for composition without being overly invested in it just yet. So I've been doing those little acrylic paintings as a preparatory thing for this next phase, which is to do some key art pieces for my comic project. And if you comment comic, it'll get you on the wait list. I have a chat bot that will contact you and walk you through, giving me your email address for that project. And that's all the email address is for, is just for that project. Um, but the idea here is I want to do some of the story beats as key art pieces with acrylic illustrations, and this is one of the kind of the pivotal moment of the first act where he comes across the beacon that he's been sent to find out in the wilds of this planet. And so, but figuring out, that's gonna look like. I'm thinking maybe make it look like a buoy, and also have it kind of maybe land with the like the Mars. I think it's Mars Pathfinder probe that I think it landed with, like it was built into a bunch of balloons. And so I thought I'd come on for 45 minutes or so. I have to take off a little bit early today to go to my university to take care of some things. So, but kind of getting the stupid phase in this morning will help me really think about how I want this to actually work, even if the drawings do get a little bit messy. So, what else can we do here? So, maybe it's like stuck up above somewhere. Some kind of cage around its broadcast area. Maybe it's like stuck up here, and you'll have like maybe a couple of the balloons are still inflated, other ones are deflated. It's been up there for a long time. Well, they're designed to be pretty tough too, so. Maybe it's like up on top of something. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but That would maybe be more of a kind of a back. It's kind of in the back of this hollow thing, and then he's down here looking up at it. So working on this stupid version. Oh, look, there's the bots. Man, it is a bad day for bots over on Kick. Holy cow. Man, somebody like came up with like probably some kind of AI bot that is just like going like crazy. I need to figure out how to get rid of certain kinds of content on here. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. So yeah, I tend to think in shapes in light and dark to a certain degree. I like to work in a blend of chiaro, scuro, as you said, but also no-tan, which is figure ground basically, but it's kind of the similar meaning as chiaroscuro, but it has to do more with like interlocking shapes. So yeah, but I do try to think about that to a certain degree, and this pen is kind of handy for that. It's got this kind of broad, flat tip. They come in different thicknesses. This is the how big is this one? This is the 3.8 millimeter. Comes up to as large as 6, which I thought about picking up one of those, the 6 millimeter one. Actually buy a complete set of these for like $50 on Amazon, and then I actually fill it with my own ink. It comes with a special ink that you're supposed to use with it, but I filled up with a kind of low clogging ink, and I like all of my pens and things that I'm using to use all the same ink if I can. Um, so yeah, so I'm thinking about the thing where he's like seeing the view up here. So maybe maybe it's a little out of the way, and that way it's just a bit more challenging, right, to get to. It's like in an awkward spot to get access to. But yeah, this is part of my larger Bramble projects. If you've seen like comic pages I've been working on, um, this is kind of how that's set up to work with that. And then we got plants coming in. There's like vines coming into the plant into that, and so yeah. Again, this is a concept key art piece, so it can't just be like a generic illustration. I want to be showing off, how things work, not just how things look to a certain degree, because I want it to be a concept piece and not just a we've got another one of these bags just kind of draped over on top of this stuff over here. Yeah, so this will be like a little bit longer term thing, and depending on what I decide here, I might enlarge it quite a bit because I've got some larger illustration board. Um, Yeah, so again, it helps me see things. I mean, I can do it all line too, be fine. But I thought I'd use this pen. I bought these pens. I like them. Problem is, like, I think I have my desk is up at an angle, so it's like at an angle like this, and so I have to like hold it a certain way for it to come out because the tips are really stiff. These are actually for writing and calligraphy. Um, what are they called again? I forget what they're called off the top of my head. But yeah, they're like this. Come in different sizes. Um, yeah, so yeah. Yeah, we get that buoy thing over here, and then I've got like been thinking about like the design of it, and I maybe like to lean back into kind of a bit more of like a cassette futurism thing. I was doing something a little cleaner, but I think somewhere between like a Sid Mead kind of aesthetic to a certain degree, but also with the that cassette futurism, since that seems to be kind of in the moment as it is. Yeah, so like putting it up here might be a good idea. I do to a certain degree. I haven't made this one digitally, but I should. Maybe I'll include that. I've put together like a digital brush pack that you can get on my Rainland Studios site recently, and one I actually put together a long time ago. I just never got around to putting it up. Um, but I've also been not doing as much digitally personally. I think I want to do some digital drawings and things for it, or maybe do some of the plotting of my comic pages in there just because it's easier to make things larger and move things around to a certain degree. Um, but but trying to lean more into doing actual, you know, analog work, real, the real stuff, as it were, non digital work. Never been a big fan of the word traditional drawing and painting, partially just because it implies that it doesn't have relevance, and I just don't think that's true. Um, Traditional, I would say, is like specific technique, like how you're layering your paint or whatever, the way that a medium is being used. Yeah, this is interesting right here. So the way that this pen works is it draws with a broad tip like that. If I so you get like a nice broad tip, but it also allows you to draw on the corner, so you get really fine lines. It doesn't have like an in between state very much. I mean, if you push a certain way, you can get like a textured stroke like that. Um, but it's not, the idea behind it is you draw slow and then you get these nice kind of, these nice strokes out of it that you would see with calligraphy. Um, so it kind of has some interesting working properties. And okay, so yeah, so I like pulling it. I just don't like how I have to hold it to a certain degree on this table. Yeah, I thought I'd try. One of the things I also find too is like if I think about a picture too much in my brain, so if it's just sitting in my so there's just sitting in my brain, that might be too many folds. But if it's just sitting in my brain, um, it's hard for me to kind of tell what's going to happen with it exactly. Like I can maybe sit and visualize for a while, and I might come up with something. But as soon as I start working on this stupid version, it makes it a lot easier for me to visualize because I have something concrete on the paper. I've made it, kind of brought it into objective reality to a certain degree. And once I have it kind of in this kind of phase, like I started here thinking, okay, what is it kind of going to look like, or what's the overall scene? Like it's in this hollow. Maybe there's some eggs. Maybe there's creatures coming in. And a lot of these scribbles are only things that I'd be able to interpret. I might be able to explain it to somebody, but any non-visual person would get very confused by what I've done on here. And but it's for me to just kind of think about all the different elements, and that's what that stupid version is for. And I say, oh, okay, well, what's this, beacon going to look like? And I was thinking, so I was gathering reference. I got up, I didn't get up any later than I normally do, but I was sitting here thinking about it and looking up reference, trying to make a decision. Going through my story beat thumbnails that I have over here, and stuff like this. So I've got some different shots that I know are kind of pivotal for the story, and I definitely want to include them as I kind of work through different illustrations here. But this one I kind of pretty clear in terms of like the different types of things in here. And so I could have this vertical, because I'm doing a comic book, my key art can be vertical, and maybe that would make it a good idea for a cover to a certain degree too. But by setting it up this way, maybe I can imply, there's creatures hiding in the shadows up here that he doesn't see just yet. And, ready to descend. One of the weird parts about the planet is like basically a lot of these giant interwoven angles of these massive plant structures, basically like giant wooden vines kind of interlaced and tangled together across the planet. And that's kind of what's built up the surface of this world. And then scattered across the planet where these humans have settled is alien artifacts and structures that they're completely puzzling, because the aliens aren't there. Like, they're just gone. Like, there's no biological remains, there's no fossils, there's just their architecture and their artifacts, and especially these things they call totems, which is like these large, almost like crystalline structures that have some plant things flowing into them. And they form different kinds of shapes and things, but there's some of these that sit on the surface of different sizes. And the other kinds of artifacts too, but they're all kind of inexplicable to humans. Like, they serve some kind of purpose, but we don't know what they're for. I only partially know what they're for. But this is a story set 80 years after they've arrived, and our hero here, he's been sent out on a scavenging mission to locate one of the lost colony ships that crashed when they first arrived. And he doesn't know what he will find. But it's also anticipated that he's unlikely to return. So he's given just enough stuff to get him to the beacon, and then send back information about its exact location. So that way they know if it's worthwhile to send out a scavenger team to the ship. So his main job is just to go out and find this beacon, and then once he finds it, to send back that information. In exchange for that, the whole colony is built on exchanges of sacrifice, and so they because they're running out of resources, so that this is the way they have of kind of controlling the resources. And in exchange for his willingness to go on this mission where he's unlikely to return, they'll make sure his wife is taken care of. And so he agrees to go out, and he is out on this mission. So so this is the moment where he finds the beacon, and why it's turned on after all this time. So suddenly it was off, and then suddenly it's on, and they don't know why. And it's very confusing. Jeez, this guy's just implacable, this bot. Um, so that's kind of the big story here is he's in pursuit of this objective. And maybe it won't be a big nest. Maybe it'll just be like some young animals in the back over here. So he doesn't see them until he gets up there. He's investigating, trying to figure out what's going on with this thing. And all of a sudden, they start making some noise. And that's when the parents come calling. It turns out there's one here, maybe there's some over here, or there's other locations around it. He doesn't realize that he has stepped into big problem. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. So I'm just kind of trying to sketch out some of this stuff in a way where it can be more comprehensible to me. I do have to kind of showing just his back here. I'm trying to show the whole scene, but I do worry about just showing his back. So like we could have a version of this where maybe we're looking past the buoy and we see him kind of down below. All right, so we have like the buoy here, and we've got the stuff in it. This is the advantage of the stupid version. I can kind of, well, that's kind of a good standard view, but the stupid version lets me, once I have that, I can start, playing around with the angles of it because I can see what that looks like. So I can come down here and be like, oh, well, let's see. I've got him down here, and I've got the buoy up here. We're kind of looking past the buoy, and maybe we focus more on like the hidden young creatures over here, and then we can kind of see over here the parents coming in. And because the angle here, I can make it feel a little bit more threatening because they're kind of coming in from above. And I can show details on the buoy. Or maybe he's crawled up a little bit and he's like holding on to it, investigating it. And again, that's the advantage of coming up with these other versions is I can then take what I've done and move it around, and I can really start to kind of figure out some more dynamic, more expressive views. Like he's holding on to this and he's pulled his head up over here, and it's maybe the moment he kind of sees these guys, and then these are coming over here, the parents of these creatures, and he doesn't have any bad intentions toward them, but there's this buoy. It's all kind of beat up and plants a little. It's been there for a while. There's some kind of cage around it, so it's can land safely, and we can see. Okay, well, there's those balloons from like a Mars rover type situation. And so that way it allows me to start really thinking about the angles on it. So yeah, so that's the advantage of like the stupid version thing is then I can start playing around with these views, and it gives me different options. And then I've got another technique that I want to use maybe tomorrow morning for kind of helping me figure out exactly how to set this up. Like, to think about the cassette features, and maybe like on one of his arms, he's got like this whole get up on there. Um, it's all been cobbled together, and like there's his hand and glove here. For controlling different things. Like he's supposed to have like a little drone up here. So that's how I'm trying to think through this. So it's good to have like, just a page where you're just like, I'm just gonna figure out potentialities. What are the different elements? How are they going to fit together? How does it work overall? And I think that can make a big difference for how you kind of plan out what you're doing, rather than just like jumping into whatever's the most, first thing you come across. But I do see a lot of really kind of generic illustration out there, and I don't want to go down that track of making things look kind of generic. But I thought it'd be good to come on for an hour or so and figure out some of the elements of this next picture. Just trying to get low on ink. Let's see how it looks in here. Oh yeah, it's very low on ink. Look at that. Almost no ink in there. I would expect. Let's see if I can get my syringe to work properly on this thing. Doesn't always want to inject properly into here. Got these little cheap syringes. So I can bring in my ink. Like wrapping a little bit, huh? More that time. There we go. There's a nice little injection of ink. And then the next step here. So the technically speaking, these aren't supposed to be refillable. But I basically saved one of the original ones it comes with. And that lets me kind of refill it. With that, and then just carefully put it back on. And now I've got some really nice permanent ink, because the ink it comes with is water soluble, which I don't like. They do make like actual kind of ink, official ink refillers that you can kind of stick into a jar like this. Got one in like a brush pen or something around here too. But the ones that are sized that would match the size for this, like they don't make them anymore. So they're kind of expensive. That would explain why I'm getting a lot of these stringy strokes on here. So let's see if we can get this going. There it goes. There we go. So that should help that ink flow a lot better now that I've refilled it. I forget what they call these pens, but I like them. Definitely recommend them. So that's what I'm trying to kind of figure out here. Um, yeah, so I was thinking about some of this stuff, like, how things I want to show off. Like, this is nice because I could show off his arm here, right? I could show off the creatures there. I could show off the danger, the buoy, and the scene, and make it feel dangerous. So maybe this type of view could be really advantageous because I want to avoid a scene, say, like I was doing over here, where you're looking at his back. What I could do in that situation is the creatures could be coming in from over here, coming in. Then he could be facing them. Um, you can see why they're coming because what's up there. But the advantage again to having um, it up here is I can see his face. I can see him interacting with this thing, and that helps. Good morning. Good morning. Trying to figure out some thumbnails here using my stupid version approach. So, and then I've got a meeting at 10, so I have to stop at 9. Well, the work is the fun part, right? It's like today I found out I haven't talked to this guy in years, like really since like 2013 or something like that. There was a group of guys I went with into Yangshuo, China, to do some landscape painting, and one of them I'm really pretty good friends with. The other ones I didn't know as well, and found out he just died of cancer. I haven't talked to him, in years, but it's quite shocking. Apparently, he had lung cancer, and then it went into his brain over the last few months. He just found out about a month before he passed, which is pretty shocking. Yeah, so this comic stuff I've been doing those little acrylic paintings you might have seen, and doing a series of those. And then I was like, I wanted to kind of complete that little sequence of those as a practice thing, and then kind of make some Ralph McQuarrie style concept pieces, like key art pieces for the comic project. So I kind of pulled out my story beats page, and this scene's like the end of the first act where he comes across the beacon, and I'm pretty clear on kind of what that scene is more or less like. And so I thought that would be a good one to start with, just because it's kind of pivotal in the story. And trying to decide on the size, like this might be too small. It's like a 9x12. I might go a little bit larger. Yeah, that one's already got gesso. Yeah, again, it wasn't someone I knew that well, but it's just kind of like, wow, you never know. I'd see him post once in a while, but I didn't really pay that much attention, on Facebook. I just, like, there's that guy posting. There's that guy posting. I didn't realize he'd been really ill. And, yeah. Yeah, so I was commenting to my friend who does know him really well. He's the one that told me about it. Because I would just saw him disappear. I always stop posting, whatever. People do that all the time. But one of my friends there told me about it. He said, "Yeah, it's really sudden." And yeah, but I was commenting to him, I was like, "Yeah, it's that kind of way to go is often a lot of really painful, just because more or less your expiration date." And it was similar with my dad last year. Once he got once he got sick, it was obviously just a matter of time. And he made it pretty far. I think, less than a certain amount make it as far as he did, the 2 years in for his kind of cancer. But But as soon as like he was on this particular kind of medicine that basically kept the cancer from growing, doesn't kill it, but it kind of stops it. And then he wasn't able to take it due to some blood pressure issues. And once you stop taking it once, you can't ever get back on again with it. And so it was just a matter of time in that case. And you know, like one of the things we kind of do, I think, is very silly that we do a lot in Hollywood is we kind of like to pretend that our will is strong enough to kind of overcome things like that. Like the movie Beautiful Mind, where they kind of show in the movie that he overcame his mental illness by willing it, which isn't how that works like at all. Um, mental illness ebbs and flows like other diseases, and so he was when that rolled around in the movie, he was just in a lull of that. And they showed a lot of false things, like they showed him receiving his what's it called, the um, I just forgot the name, that scientific award, the something prize, the my brain this morning. But yeah, but that was last winter when he passed, and it was a long road, and the initial impact of the disease, the initial surgeries and then radiation, it really impacted his quality of life the last couple of years of his life, and that was a problem with that too. Yeah, Nobel. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, they show him receiving the Nobel Prize, and if you read the book, he wasn't. They wouldn't let him on. They wouldn't let him in the building. He's crazy. Um, and there's other scenes in the movie that are like super inspirational, but didn't happen at all. Like there's the whole scene where his wife decides to stay with him, Jennifer Connelly, playing the wife, and that doesn't happen. She leaves. Like she takes the kids and goes because he's crazy. It's not his fault. He's completely delusional, but it doesn't help to kind of pretend that that can be overcome. And it's that American can do kind of feeling about ourselves, the meme of America, and I get it. But at the same time, it's like like we don't need to be as fatalistic as Russians are, for example. But I think there's certain things that are just kind of that's inevitable, and and how we deal with that inevitability makes a big difference for what we do. And it's like this. Like I was saying with this Ken this Ken guy that I knew. I'm gonna say call him friend just because I didn't know him that well. I'd seen him at figure drawing sessions and things in Hong Kong, but he kind of knew his expiration date, and we all have one. We just don't know when it rolls around, and it's a bigger challenge, I think, if you kind of have that somewhat extended experience where you can kind of see it coming. I remember an old instructor of mine, a mentor, William Whitaker or Bill Whitaker. He passed away relatively young. He was like in his mid to late 60s, and he'd had quadruple bypass heart surgery, and passed away after the surgery. Just didn't take or whatever. Couldn't handle it, and he had no idea. That he was going at that moment. But he would always keep comment to me a number of times that he said, every time he would look in the mirror, he'd say, "Who is that old man looking back?" And you know, so it's an interesting. Well, interesting. It's just the fact of our mortality and the things that we have to deal with. It's inevitable. So yeah, I'm working on what I call the stupid version. So this is a technique I like to use with my students where you don't have perfect clarity on your image. A lot of times you actually shouldn't have perfect clarity on your image. Like I had a student ask me recently how I how long it takes before you can really start painting exactly what you see in your head. I'm like, I don't know if that's ever happened to me. You know, it's for me, it's always a negotiation between what I think something should be like and what I get out of it. Right? Yeah, there's this negotiation between your desire and your intent and your ability and the reality of your materials. Yeah, it's an evolution. And they kind of want to be able to say, oh, well, I want it just to be this thing I see right now. It's like, well, you can actually maybe make it better than that. So one of the things I walk them through is I have them do what I call the stupid version, which is kind of like a kid's drawing. And it's just basically you're just putting all of the elements you want into a thumbnail. And it can show, it doesn't have to like be framed like a kid's drawing exactly. I think I would be terrified of that. That's what people are promising with AI, right? It's like you can get your imagination now. And all that's really going to do is degrade our imaginations because we're just going to accept what we get out of it. But yeah, stupid version. So I like to do that. And then so this is what these are kind of all right here. So I'm just taking the scene. So basically he's locating this beacon. I'm going to make the beacon kind of look like a buoy. I've been looking at like the Mars Pathfinder crash. So it's like, it's the one that dropped with all the balloons, like the balloons on it. I'm looking at the landing site for that, how the balloons are deflated, and there was like a little platform. It was in like a little shell it was inside of, and I'm gonna do this like a similar thing with this buoy where it's gonna have like pieces of this shell, and then these balloons will be deflated because it's been sitting there for like 80 years. So I think one or two of the balloons still might be inflated or partially inflated, and then they'll have the shell, and it'll have the buoy or the beacon, and then he's approaching it. And the idea with the scene is like he's finally gotten to this thing. He sees it. He sees something very strange on the side of the buoy that I'll put into the picture later. But behind it, he doesn't realize is there's a whole nest of these baby predator creatures, and they're starting to make some noises as he comes over the edge. So I've been playing around with the scene, like it's gonna maybe I usually had it kind of on the ground here in this hollow. Like, well, what if we put it up in the air a little bit, and then he's approaching it over here? And then I thought, well, I don't like that, partially just because they can't see this face. I want to picture. I want to show him interacting with things. This is fine. Like, this would probably work pretty well. It's just as like a static image. Maybe I can do a separate one where it's just kind of the set of the scene, even if he's not necessarily in it. Maybe put him in it for scale. I'm trying to think more about it as a key art piece that communicates an aspect of the story. And so I think, well, what if he's crawling up and he's kind of clasped onto it, he's pulling up to kind of see what's going on with it, why is it turned on after all this time? And as he pulls up around the edge on here, these creatures wake up, they start making a lot of noise, and then mom and dad start coming down over here. So this starts to become a little bit more of a key art type piece, right? Because you want to be able to see him, you want to see what's going on over here, you want to see what's going on, how this thing landed, how it functions, the different elements it has on it, and then like the dynamics of the scene. So I tend to do like these Ralph McQuarrie or Doug Chang style kind of key art acrylic pieces, and I might do it vertically just so maybe it could double as like a cover for my comic project at some point. So I'm kind of doing these stupid version explorations where I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are the different elements and how do they work together? And then I'll bring in my little kind of notan technique thing where I can then, set up some shapes that are based around the expressive moment and then kind of push these things into those shapes. So that's kind of the big plan here, to hopefully do something a bit more compelling than just kind of what I would sketch by default. So I wanted to come on until about 9, which is right now, because I got a meeting about my tenure track. How is that progressing? The meeting with the department chair over the review I got from the tenure people. So I get to go do that now. So, but I thought I would just come up a little bit and do that. I spent a good chunk of the morning just doing some visual research, trying to make, sifting through all my stuff, trying to make a decision. I've got my book over here of thumbnails for my project and layouts. So, yeah, I'm not too worried. I mean, I'm sort of worried because a lot of the university stuff can be really ambiguous, which I do not like. Like, they're telling me, well, it's got to be research, and like, well, what does that mean? And it, like, it can mean a lot of different things. Or I found out, like, I felt like I was doing way too much service, and they seemed to be thinking I was doing the wrong kind. I don't know. Just I don't know what's going on necessarily. But the bigger thing for me, from what the meetings I had with the committee, was that I need to do a better job of communicating what I'm doing, and in my CV, in my academic CV, which isn't my favorite activity, is working on my CV paperwork. I'd rather work on this stuff personally, but whatever. Anyway, time for me to go. Appreciate you coming in. Go put some Legos together, and we'll see you all later.